amaranth from seed, and look how big it's gotten already. I had another little baby that was randomly growing someplace, and I put that one, like, let's see, way over here, and it struggled for a bit because it was so hot, but now it's doing really well. I'm growing it because I like the red flowers, although my flowers haven't turned red yet. This right here it's supposed to turn red and flower, and then it will start to seed, and it'll be a grain. This entire plant is edible, but so today I'm just gonna come out here and clean it up because it's way out of control. And basically I'm just gonna go down here and cut some of these stems out and just kind of thin it out a little bit, and I'm gonna take it inside and make callaloo. I think I said that right. Callaloo. Wow, I trimmed all of the lower stems, lower leaves off of that amaranth, and it looks so much better. This is everything that I'm gonna say I harvested this and not just trimmed it, because all of this is edible, including the stems. The flowers at this point are not they're not edible yet, but these, everywhere you see these tendrils, these flowers, they produce grains that are really extra nutritious. So I can't wait until that happens toward the end of the life cycle. But let's take a look at the new plant. See, that looks so much better, almost like a little tree. And then now I can just stake it up along the fence if I need to. And when those tendrils, the tassels they call them, when they turn red, they're gonna be so beautiful and just kind of drape around the plant. Anyway, that was my garden tour for today. One of them anyway. Now I'm just gonna get these leaves inside, get them plunged into some ice cold water and get them cleaned up and ready to cook. Obviously I'll have to freeze some of these because that's way too much for the callaloo that I want to make today. Here is my processed, I'm going to call it my processed amaranth, and I just basically cut them into manageable pieces, and the larger leaves are leaves with any insect bites or anything in it. I'm getting rid of those. Those are going to go into compost. And the stems, any huge stems, old stems, those are going to go into compost because they're not quite as tender. So I did also want to show you, I don't know if you can see these little, that's what the grain looks like, or what it will eventually look like. You might be able to see it better over here. All of this is from the flower itself. And that, it's almost like quinoa, and almost like quinoa in terms of nutrition as well. So it's really, really good for you. Now I'm just going to, like I said, take this into the kitchen and plunge it into some ice water. That's gonna revive these leaves. These small tender leaves can be used raw, like in salad. But the big ones, I don't see a big one I can show you right now. The big ones, maybe like this, that would need to be cooked. And so that's what I'm gonna make my callaloo with. That's a lot of amaranth. Now that my amaranth is all cleaned, I'm just going to use my kitchen shears here to snip off the tops where the flowers are. Any woody stems or damaged leaves, I'm just going to put those right into my compost bowl and take them outside. The process is really simple and it goes really fast once you get started. I'm just going to hold the stem and snip the flowers right off, right underneath the last flower. And I'll put that aside in a different little dish. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I get through all of my amaranth. So here we go. These are all the amaranth flowers and some leaves in there because I didn't want to make it harder than it had to be. That's a lot of amaranth. I think next time I'm going to try cooking with these flowers because I hate for them to go to waste. So to make my callaloo, I have prepared my veg and my spices. I have half of a yellow onion that has been diced. I have some green bell pepper. Normally you would use like a yellow bell pepper or a red bell pepper, something that will offset the color of the green leaves. I have some fresh thyme here, and I have paprika, salt, allspice. Both, for me, I have both the berries and the ground allspice because that's what I have on hand. I don't love allspice, but it brings a different flavor. That's what traditionally Jamaican foods, they use a lot of allspice, and that brings that really signature flavor to the food. So that's what I have here: salt, red pepper flakes, paprika, allspice. And here I am just taking my amaranth leaves and cutting them up, stem and all, because that's what I'm going to saute up. These bigger stems, I'm not going to use those. I'm just going to throw those right on into compost, because you can see how tough they are, how tough it is for me just to cut. So imagine if you were going to eat that. Those thick stems like this are just going to go straight in the compost. But so I'm going to cut up enough amaranth leaves and stems to make a whole pot of this, a whole pan of this callaloo. Look at that. That's going to make so much, and it's going to be so delicious. And this dish will actually cook up in no time flat. It should be like less than 10 minutes just to cook the whole dish. All right, you guys, here we go. Moment of truth. My first time ever making callaloo with amaranth leaves. First thing I'm going to do is to get some heat, some oil heating in my pan here. Let's take a look. I have my pan on medium-low heat, medium-low, and I'm going to heat some oil that is a high-heat oil, just in case. And then I have my spices, and I'm going to kind of just sweat my spices to begin with in the oil. I have my allspice. I don't know if you can see this. Allspice, part whole and part ground, because that's what I had left. I have some red pepper flakes in there, some paprika, and some salt. And I'm just going to throw all of that into the pan and let that cook until it gets a little bit fragrant. And that's when I know, when it's fragrant, that's when I know that it's time to put in the rest of my aromatics. I'm just going to let that go for a hot minute. Okay, so I can now smell this cooking. It smells amazing. And I'm just kind of crushing the whole allspice berries a little bit. Normally you would use only the berries for the allspice, and I don't want to do the work of fishing those out later on. So if you're going to use whole berries, put them in a mesh bag, maybe like some cheesecloth, and tie that up or whatever, so you don't have to fish out the individual berries. But you can see that oil is nice and colorful with the spices, and it's very, very fragrant. So now I'm going to go in with my onions and my peppers. I'm going to try to leave out the garlic and thyme for a minute. I just want these onions and peppers to sweat for a little bit and kind of get tender. And then I will come back in and add in my garlic and my fresh thyme. So let's give that about anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll be ready for the next round of aromatics. Now that my onions, it's been about 3 minutes, my onions and my peppers have cooked down a little bit. I'm going to give it a little taste, a wee taste. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my thyme and my garlic. That only needs to cook down for about, actually less than a minute, because what you don't want is for the garlic to get too pungent. The garlic will burn very, very quickly. So you just want to cook that for about 30 seconds to 1 minute at the most. And then once that's done, I'm just going to add in some water, about 1/4 cup. And y'all know me, I'm a southerner, so we're going to put a little bit of butter in there. This is only about a tablespoon of butter.
Gonna add that in. And then here comes my amaranth leaves, and this is what makes the dish. It's the amaranth leaves and the stems. We're just gonna add that right on top. Just like you would any other leafy green. Spinach, collards, Swiss chard. As a matter of fact, I have a little bit of, like a few leaves of Swiss chard in here as well. And we're using stem, flower, and all. This is what I love about amaranth. The entire plant is edible. And even the flowers, like I mentioned before, once they mature, they will become a grain, kind of like, take that one out, it doesn't look so pretty, but kind of like quinoa. Super duper nutritious. And this is going to cook down just like spinach. So this looks like a lot in this pan right now, but once this cooks down, it's going to be not very much. It's not going to look like very much, but it will be delicious. And that's it. You guys can cover it up, let it cook for about 5-10 minutes, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, my amaranth greens and my spices and herbs have been cooking for about 5 minutes or so. More than that, maybe 7 to 10 minutes. And you can see everything is wilted down very nicely and melded together. Look at those stems, they're nice and tender. I'm just gonna give it a taste to make sure that I don't need to adjust my seasonings. A little taste, let's see. It's super tender. It actually doesn't need anything. I might add a tiny little bit more salt, but it's delicious as is. And that is it, you guys. That is all there is to making callaloo. You can make this, I made it traditionally with the amaranth leaves. You can make this with spinach, with kale, with greens, collard greens, or even Swiss chard. But that's it. Yummy callaloo. It's all about the spices, adding that allspice, that paprika, salt, pepper, garlic, and that's it. Onions, bell pepper, preferably a different color other than green, and that's it. Callaloo. Done and done.
So that's it, you guys. An update from the garden. Till next time. Bye.